Tonight on Frontline World, 3 stories from a small planet. First, in Ghana.
It's the dirty little secret of the high-tech industry.
Recycled computers from America end up here.
Just look at this. School District of Philadelphia.
Correspondent Peter Klein and his team of journalism students set out on a global investigation of a toxic trade that may threaten your personal security.
He can get every information about you.
Next, in Egypt.
The economic well-being of the youth is a national security issue.
A competition turns students into entrepreneurs.
Some people who laughed at me, they are now shareholders.
Could this new model help revitalize the Middle East? And finally tonight, in Vietnam.
You can use the foot pedals to carry things.
A new spin on an old idea brings a wheelchair to the developing world, and much more.
There was no other wheelchair that worked well enough in all of the difficult situations in developing countries. You have to go long distances over rocky or sandy or muddy roads.
Frontline World is made possible by Shell, supporting freedom of the press.
As you can see, people are gathering around.
And the independent journalists.
How do you respond to these charges?
Who tell the stories of our times. And by the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, committed to building a more just, verdant, and peaceful world. The William and Flora Hewlett Foundation, and the Skoll Foundation.
On the outskirts of Ghana's biggest city sits a smoldering wasteland. A slum carved into the banks of the Korle Lagoon, one of the most polluted bodies of water on Earth. The locals call it Sodom and Gomorrah. A group of my graduate journalism students from the University of British Columbia have come as part of a global investigation. We're tracking a shadowy industry that's causing big problems here and around the world. Our guide turned out to be a 13-year-old boy named Alex. He says this is the kind of place where kids grow up fast.
How many people sleep there?
He offers to take us along on a short walk to work, across the Dead River, to a notorious area called Argbobloshi.
It smells.
What does it smell like?
Here. You see? It smells.
The smell comes from the burning of plastic from old computers and TVs. In the last few years, Argbobloshi has become one of the world's digital dumping grounds, where the West's electronic waste, or e-waste, piles up, hundreds of millions of tons of it each year. The boys scavenge a living from the metal remains.
Look at this. Can't even find the words to describe it. There's no future.
Mike Anane is a local journalist who's been writing about the boys at this e-waste dump.
Life is really difficult, because they eat here, surrounded by e-waste, so much burning, a lot of toxic substances, and they basically are here to earn a living. But you can imagine the health implications of having to work here for these children whose bodies are still growing up.
Some of the boys burn old foam on top of computers to melt away the plastic, leaving behind scraps of copper and iron they can collect to sell. The younger boys use magnets from old speakers to gather up the smaller pieces left behind at the burn site.
So your specialty is magnets?
Yes.
Even when the boys take a break, they're surrounded by this stuff. Anane says he also used to play soccer here when he was a kid, but that was when this was pristine wetland. Since then, he's become one of the country's leading environmental journalists.
I'm trying to get some ownership labels. I'm collecting them because you need them as evidence. You need to tell the world where these things are coming from, and you've got to prove it. I believe in proving it. Yeah. I believe in documentation. You have to prove it. Now, just look at this.
What's that?
School District of Philadelphia.
Most Americans have no idea their cast-off electronics are being shipped to the other side of the world. When containers of old computers first began arriving in West Africa a few years ago, Ghanaians welcomed what they thought were donations to help bridge the digital divide. But soon, a whole shadow economy sprung up around the shipments. Exporters learned to exploit the loopholes by labeling junk computers donations, leaving men like Godson to sort it out.
Yeah, this is where we kept our goods.
He bought this container from one of the shippers and moved it to this lot near the port.
Tell me about this stuff. Where's it from?
Some are from Germany and UK, and also America.
All the way from America, wow.
He sorts through them, looking for working electronics that can be sold.
Tell me about like how much works roughly when you get stuff. Like what's the percentage?
Maybe 50-50. Yeah, it's 50-50.
After it's sorted, a lot of this will be dumped at the burn site outside of town. Hard drives that can be salvaged are displayed at these open-air markets, a benefit for those who can't afford new equipment. But there's a hidden danger. Many of these drives still contain the personal data of the original owners.
Hello?
Off-camera, Ghanaians admit to us that organized criminals sometimes comb through these drives for personal information to use in scams. So we decided to buy some hard drives of our own to see what's on them, secretly filming the transaction to avoid the seller's suspicions.
How much if I wanted to get one of those?
350.
350?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
That's 40.
My students take the hard drives to Regent University in the Ghanaian capital and ask computer scientist Ina Kwesi Messiah to help us read them.
Will we be able to see the information on the drive?
Yes.
From just hooking all that up?
Yes.
Just as simple as that?
Yes, simple, sir.
Within minutes, he shows us intimate details of people's lives, files left behind by the hard drive's original owners.
Wow.
And we find private financial data too, credit card numbers, account information, records of online transactions the original owners may not have realized were even there.
Yeah, I can get your bank numbers and I retrieve all your money from your accounts.
How does that happen?
It happens through, let's say, backup on the drive. In case you lost your card and I have the number, I can retrieve, I can just log into the ATM card and then get every information about you.
So basically you could see anybody's files?
Anybody's file. If ever somebody gets your hard drive, he can get every information about you from the drive. Every information, no matter where it is hidden.
That's particularly a problem in a place like Ghana, which is listed by the US State Department as one of the top sources of cybercrime in the world. And it's not just individuals who are exposed.
Here's one with a $22 million government contract.
After leaving Ghana, the students and I analyzed the drives. We're surprised at what we found when we looked a little deeper.
Authorized for local reproduction, so clearly they don't want this out.
It turns out this drive came from Northrop Grumman, one of America's largest military contractors, and it contains details about sensitive, multi-million-dollar U.S. government contracts.
Here's one with Pentagon, right?
We find contracts with the Defense Intelligence Agency, NASA, even Homeland Security. We show the drives to James Jury, who works on data security for the FBI. He's particularly concerned about the potential breach at the Transportation Security Administration.
The government contracting process is supposed to be confidential. If I know how you're hiring people for security-related job, TSA, air marshals, then I can prepare a person to fit that model and then get my guy in. And once I have my guy in, you have no security.
Dury says that companies like Northrop Grumman may believe they've successfully erased their drives before recycling. But then he shows us the only surefire way to keep the data out of the wrong hands.
And you just start banging on it with stuff. My mind. There you go. I'm guessing after that it's not going to spin up.
Northrop Grumman refused to speak with us on camera. But they did issue a statement saying the potential security threat was disconcerting, and they pledged to investigate.
Why don't we go in the front door?
I think we should go in the front.
Right now, there are no tough U.S. laws regulating the disposal of e-waste, leaving companies and consumers to sort out the claims of recyclers on their own.
Can we bother you 2 secs? We have a couple of monitors we want to get rid of.
We wanted to follow the recycling process ourselves, so wearing a hidden camera, the students drop off some e-waste at this facility on the West Coast. We're assured the e-waste will be disposed of safely and locally.
And what they literally do is they dump it into a blast furnace, and it burns it all up, and all they get out of it is a bunch of ash and some of the precious metals. That's all that's left. Everything else gets consumed, burnt. And that's an actual fact.
We take note of the ID numbers on the containers, and using public records, we trace where they're sent. A few weeks later, our reporting lands us here, in the port of Hong Kong. We see for ourselves how hundreds of millions of tons of our old electronics are slipped out of North America into the world's biggest shadow market for e-waste. Just a few miles from the port, hidden behind 8-foot-high corrugated walls, we see mountains of computer monitors, printer cartridges from Georgia, relics of old video arcades. In China, e-waste has become big business. We make our way to the southern Chinese city of Guiyu. It's completely built around the e-waste trade. Miles and miles and miles of nothing but old electronics. Virtually everyone we saw in Guiyu was either hauling electronics or dismantling them.
Hello. How are you? Can you ask him, is it difficult work?
像这样的话也是要自己做工，光靠工人做的话就没办法做了。
Guiyu is the dirty little secret of the high-tech industry, really. Even the workers, they have no idea of the long-term impacts to their children. They don't realize what's really happening to their health. They're starting to get
Jim Puckett is an environmental activist credited with discovering this harmful e-waste route to China.
Every time I put my hand down in, I pull up another piece of computer. Unbelievable.
This video, shot in 2001, was the first anyone had documented of Western computers being dumped in Guiyu. He found tens of thousands of people working here in the toxic trade.
I'm not sure what these components are.
We invited Puckett to join us on our visit to Guiyu this year, and he says it's only gotten worse.
I was there first in 2001, and it was shocking enough then. It had gone from very bad to really horrific, and what is happening there is rather apocalyptic. Behind these chimneys are the burn stations, all retrofitted. I smell the solder here. Let's get out.
One of the most disturbing things Puckett shows us is taking place behind closed doors. Women literally cooking circuit boards to salvage the computer chips, which have trace amounts of gold. They're slowly poisoning themselves with lead fumes.
So all these old motherboards and other types of circuit boards are being cooked day in and day out, mostly by women, sitting there breathing the lead tin solders. It's just quite devastating.
We wanted to know who's making money off this hazardous work. And that brought us to downtown Hong Kong, home to hundreds of companies that import e-waste into China. No one here would speak to us on camera, so we filmed surreptitiously. Jim Puckett and I arranged to meet one e-waste broker who was willing to explain the e-waste trade from the inside.
Oh, you're hard to find. But you've never had any trouble with customs bringing it across federal trucks?
The man explains how American e-waste makes its way into China, despite laws intended to stop it.
If we were to send you our material, would our recyclers get in trouble with the Chinese government if they find their material coming into mainland?
Okay, I can only say that if they get caught, there's nothing to do with you. Because
yeah.
I buy from you, and then I sell to him. He's buying from me, he's not buying from you.
The man says since Hong Kong ships millions of containers to the U.S. and most return empty, it's cheap to load them with e-waste and too expensive to dispose of the waste safely, no matter what recyclers claim.
Due diligence and checking how environmentally safe it is.
I can only say one thing. If you want to do it environmentally, you have to pay. They have to invest in machinery, everything, labor. And it didn't worth to pay so much money.
But is it hurting the environment?
It's hurting.
It's hurting.
Actually, it's hurting. But they're limited to a certain place. And you have to think about it in this way. China is a developing country. They have to go through this process. And sometimes you have to sacrifice something in order to get something.
What we just witnessed was a typical broker. We kept asking him, but isn't it illegal to take it to China? And he said, that's not for you to worry about. He was very respectful of what he knows about Hong Kong law. He said, no, I can't take CRTs. I can't take batteries. And when I asked him, what should we do with the CRTs? He said, take them to Vietnam.
Vietnam, Malaysia, Pakistan. The list of digital dumping grounds keeps growing. But we heard that one of the biggest importers of e-waste from the West is now trying to change. So a team of my graduate students made one last trip to India. No longer just a dumping ground, India is now generating its own e-waste at an alarming rate, thanks to a growing middle class with a taste for high tech.
Last year, we sold more than 7 million PCs in India. We generated 330,000 tons of electronic waste within India. So all these are going to come back to the waste stream sooner or later. So it's a growing industry.
This state-of-the-art facility outside Bangalore has been opened up by a businessman named Rohan Gupta. He's betting on a new Indian law that could force the high-tech industry here to recycle responsibly, and maybe one day put the digital dumps out of business.
Yes, we have solutions. We could put up such plants across the world. So those are the solution. 10 years down the line, it could be worth $1 billion industry.
He says one recycled bit at a time, the profits might really begin to add up. At this nearby plant, they're literally trying to spin the waste into gold. Refining the scrap in a safe environment and fashioning it into watches and jewelry they market as eco-friendly. Plants like this could become part of a global network of certified e-waste recyclers that Jim Puckett's group is trying to get off the ground. But even Puckett realizes it's an uphill struggle.
Even if you have a state-of-the-art facility in a country like India, the free market there will send it to the lowest common denominator, to the worst facilities, where people are sitting on the streets just picking through it by hand. It's a myth to think that you can just solve the problem immediately with technology alone.
Before leaving India, the students find some telltale signs of back-alley e-waste work. A trail of stripped circuit boards. Which brings us to this locked courtyard. Inside, the toxic trade continues.
काम करने का मन नहीं करता ऐसा बस नहीं करेंगे तो पैसा नहीं मिलेगा इसलिए करते हैं
India may have banned these sulfuric acid baths, but it's hard to enforce. And for this 19-year-old and countless others around the world, the economics of e-waste won't be easily changed.
Do his parents know what he's doing now?
आपके मम्मी पापा को पता है कि आप यहाँ काम कर रहे हैं?
नहीं
क्यों?
मैं बताया नहीं कि इस लाइन में काम करता हूँ ऐसे मैं अपनी ज़िंदगी बर्बाद कर रहा हूँ लेकिन मैं अपने बच्चों को थोड़ा ज़िंदगी बर्बाद करूँगा
Later tonight, in Vietnam, new mobility for the disabled. But first, in Egypt, a competition that could help turn around the Middle East.
We think of Egypt as an ancient and timeless place. But today's Cairo is a city of young people, and it's growing fast. They're mostly under 30, and they're the new majority in Egypt. People here call them the waiting generation. They're having trouble finding a place in the country's stagnant economy, where on average there's a 5-year wait for a decent job, even for college graduates. Wahid Shahid worked his way through college and expected a government job like his parents. But finding nothing, he now sells mobile phones on the street.
When you have youth who are educated and unemployed, what will they do with their life? Either these youth become a burden on our economies or they become an engine for growth and prosperity.
Soraya Salti is a Jordanian trying to turn Arab youth toward the world of business. She runs a nonprofit called Injaz, a spin-off of the American Junior Achievement Program.
Thank students, we thank judges.
This office in Egypt is one of a dozen Injaz programs across the region.
I feel it's too much because I feel that
They're working to defuse a demographic time bomb.
We want to catch them before they are unemployed, and we want to instill in them the entrepreneurial spirit and the entrepreneurial skill set so that they can create their employment opportunity. We want to create excitement, and what's the best thing to do more than create a competition for entrepreneurs?
This is the centerpiece of the INJAZ program, the annual Battle for the Best Student Company. Teams from across Cairo go head-to-head to create the most innovative and profitable business. Think of it as The Apprentice for the Middle East college set. But instead of Donald Trump, the judges are Egyptian industry titans looking to develop the business leaders the country sorely needs. Hani El-Masari, one of Egypt's top young executives, judged last year's contest.
It's very simple. This is going to be, like you said, the Jeopardy show. Or in Arabic and English, Man Sarabah al-Milyon, who wants to be a millionaire.
But this year, he's decided to enter the fray and mentor his own team.
I am a no-nonsense guy. I'm here to win. I'm not here to have fun. I'm not here to come number 2 or number 3. We're here to be number 1 in everything we do.
Hani's advising a group of engineering students from one of Egypt's top universities. They've got an idea for a recycling company that they think can take the title this year.
I think we have an advantage. This is a major thing. You are contributing to the society in a way that makes you money. What else can you do?
21-year-old Ahmed Yusri is the team CEO. His company forms partnerships with local businesses to collect their garbage and recycle it for a profit. As part of their marketing campaign, they're trying to raise awareness about environmentalism. But the green revolution hasn't quite caught on here. Since joining INJAZ, Ahmed's become consumed with his new passion for business, even when he gets together with friends at a weekend barbecue.
المهم الاويرنس ده احنا من الفيجن بتاعتنا ان احنا نتشينج الايجيبشن بيهيفيرز او الايجيبشن ايدنتيتي ان يبقى جزء الكليننج ده جزء برضه من عندنا ان احنا ما نرميش حاجه في الشارع ان احنا ما نعملش كذا. انا السي او بعيد عنك. لا يا راجل.
But his work with INJAZ is proving to be a tough sell at home.
ايه انا عايز اعرف الملاك ده هيظهر امتى؟
لا لسه كمان
في فلوس ولا مفيش فلوس؟
لا عادي.
يبقى احنا استفدنا ايه والله؟
ما هو قلت لك حوار ان هو بس بيوازن الفرق بين عندنا وعندهم الكلام ده كله.
مش حاجه هو بس مجرد بنبين حاجات.
Ahmed's father thinks the problem with the next generation isn't a lack of opportunity, but unrealistic expectations.
انا في شغلي بدات من الصفر، بدات من كاتب. كل واحد عايز يطلع مدير او عايز يطلع دكتور او بتاع وما يشتغل وعايز اول ما يتخرج يلاقي الشغله اللي هي البرستيج بتاعه وما يبقاش.
There's a huge gap between our generation and his generation. Like for him, the most important thing is if this has interrupted my school, then it's not worth it. So I hope that he's gonna change his mind soon.
8 other teams are working around Cairo to win the INJAZ competition, but they have no idea what their rivals are up to.
You're in a fight without knowing who are you fighting. You're fighting in the dark. So you have to hit everywhere.
Abdul Hamid Ahmed is a law student who's making his first foray into business.
When I told people that I'll be a CEO in a company, some people mocked me, really. Once people saw a product, some other people who laughed at me, they are now shareholders.
Abdul Hamid's company is pinning its hopes on a unique bag they've developed that converts into a lap desk.
This is a laptop pillow and a desk. It's called Smile. So, a Smile, this is the skin for it.
He's sold almost 600 bags so far, making thousands in profits. And he's still trying to rack up some more sales before the competition deadline.
On day 1 of starting the company course, I've bought like 15 books in business management, body language, presentation skills, how to organize everything. I could give you titles if you want.
All of the preparation has left him pretty confident.
Worst scenario would be first place. Worst scenario. If something was more than first place, we'll have a good thing.
ودي البوسترز بتاعت المجلة.
Across town, Noor Rafat is hustling to complete her own last-minute sales. The 18-year-old pharmacy student is hoping to impress the Injaz judges with her youth magazine, Ariftaha, or Did You Know?
احنا خلينا اسمها عرفتها علشان اكترية المعلومات اللي فيها حاجات جديدة ما حدش كان يعرفها قبل كده، بس يعني مش عايزة احرق المجلة، خليكم تشوفوها احسن. مجلة شبابية بتتكلم عن حاجات كتير، فيها كذا موضوع، فيها موضوع عن الرياضة، عن الدين، عن الأكل، عن الرجيم، عن كل حاجة. اوكي، والمجلة دي ب5 جنيه، واحد عايز.
Paying back the startup money to her family and friends isn't going to be easy. On top of that, she lost her Injaz advisor and more than half her team. But Noor says she's not giving up.
برضه لازم نشجع. أنا ممكن أشتري كل ساعة واحدة عادي.
She's got just 48 hours left to turn a profit.
هو لحد دلوقتي أنا مش حاسة إن إحنا ريدي خالص، لأن إحنا يعني حاسة إن إحنا لسه كلنا نيرفس وحاسين إن بنبيع يعني. هو صحيح يعني مش بنبيع كتير بس ادينا بنبيع. الحمد لله.
Still, Noor says the experience she's gained in the Injaz competition is especially important. Women here suffer a rate of unemployment 4 times higher than men. So another critical part of the Injaz mission is reaching girls early. Soraya tells me they come into schools like this one to connect with girls before they become discouraged.
They just give up. They decide that I don't even want to be part of this workforce. And 40% of them becoming housewives. Just from the start. خلاص, there's no place for me. شوي شوي رح تطلعوا تتدرجوا في المناهج تاعون إنجاز، تتعلموا عن سوق العمل وتتعلموا عن المهارات اللي بتطلبها سوق العمل. انتوا رأيكم إنه رح تقدروا تلاقوا شغل بسهولة بس تتخرجوا من المدرسة؟
The stakes are high. A country's economic prosperity is closely tied to female employment.
لكن دلوقتي مع مشاركتي بمجموعة زملاء يعني واصدقائي بقيت اعرف اخد قراراتي بنفسي.
Soraya hopes these girls will continue with the Injaz program. But in today's Egypt, she says, the odds are still stacked against them.
Education reform is going to be taking years, and we have no time. We always say youth are the future, right? Of every country, youth are the future. Youth are today. They exist and breathe today. We can't wait.
It's the night before the competition, and all 3 Injaz teams are scrambling to prepare.
Wake up, to let the people know what you are actually doing.
Abdul Hamid runs his team like a military operation, planning everything down to the minute. He's not leaving anything to chance.
الناس كلها ممكن تسال في اي حته، ممكن تلاقي واحد مثلا داخل حمام سوري في تشبيه يعني ودخل لقى جادج جنبه.
Abdul Hamid plans to drill his team late into the night.
روان انت لخبطتي لخبطه رهيبه.
Meanwhile, Ahmed rehearses his presentation in English.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our first show tonight.
The teams modeled it after a game show.
Always to introduce what you're about to do. There's no harm in over-communicating, ever.
Ahmed's intent on getting his message right. He'll only have one chance with the judges. But back home, he still doesn't know how to win over his father.
قاعد يومين ما ينامش. يومين طول الليل شغال. عمال بيحضر. وانا بتابعه على فكره، بشوف ايه بيعمل ايه وبتاع عشان اتاكد.
خلاص؟ عارف والله هحاول ما اتاخرش بس والله عشان اخر يوم خالص والله.
Ahmed has an unusual strategy to prepare for tomorrow.
I think sometimes I look better without hair, and I just want tomorrow to be like perfect and everything.
It's past midnight and Noor is just coming home.
بكرة ده دلوقتي أهم يوم في حياتي. حاسة بإيه؟ أنا حاسة إن أنا خايفة قوي. إن شاء الله ناخد مركز بقى أول تاني. بس مش بعد كده بقى يعني إحنا تعبنا قوي.
Put these posters up first, then put the rest blue.
Morning on competition day.
مش عارفين اسمنا صح. ينفع كده؟
After weeks of careful preparation, it all comes down to the next few hours.
I can't wait to see what the student companies are all about this year.
For the first time, all 9 teams can size up their rivals.
أنا عاجبني بتوع ريسايكلينج. حاساهم بيعملوا حاجة حلوة يعني.
Products here range from toys to ecotourism. Surprisingly, after all the detailed planning, Abdul Hamid's team is nowhere to be found.
إزاي اتأخروا كده؟ هم في رحلة ولا إيه؟
As the other teams put the finishing touches on their displays, Abdul Hamid finally arrives, having overlooked one crucial detail: parking in downtown Cairo.
Only the thing that we haven't thought of was the parking area. Yeah. كل البنين تتنفخ. 5 دقايق بالظبط البلايين. اطلع يا جماعة، اطلع يا جماعة، اطلع يا جماعة.
The judges arrive, prominent senior executives from some of Egypt's largest companies. Abdul Hamid says he wonders if one slip-up will cost him the title.
Give me C! C! Give me B! Who are we? منتج مالتي فانكشن. الشنطة دي حاجة منها.
The financial guy must be very happy. عاملين profits كبيرة.
The judges are not just looking at the bottom line, but also for quick thinking and innovative ideas, and the drive to help build Egypt's new business class.
احنا ليه عملنا كده؟ لأن الفيجن بتاعتنا أصلاً إن احنا عايزين نوصل للشباب وعندنا مسجز نوصلها لهم. احنا لما نتفرج
It's great when you see the female leading.
Ahmed gets one last pep talk before he too faces the judges.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you to our show today, Forza Show.
But in the middle of his presentation, an unexpected visitor walks in. Ahmed's father has come to judge his son's work for himself.
We do not only recycle, we work on the complete value chain, which is collecting, sorting, transporting, recycling, and producing. So we collect the whole chain.
It was amazing.
Now that the presentations are over, all the teams can do is wait and wonder while the judges deliberate privately.
There are no two ideas that are the same. يعني كل واحدة اللي بتتكلم عن السياحة واللي عنده منتج ذكي.
كمان يسرب عن.
Yes.
They must decide which business has the best chance of real-world success.
That's the question. Which company would be able to compete on the Middle East region?
إن شاء الله تمام يعني وهتعجبهم يعني إن شاء الله هنكسب.
يعني in terms of score أنا بالنسبة لي أنا يعني في فرق بسيط جدا اللي كنا بنتكلم عليه.
I'm pretty nervous because I just don't know what's gonna happen.
But let's vote. We seem to all agree that.
As the final votes are tallied, the teams gather for the moment of truth.
In the end, we feel that whereas we are all winners, there has to be, unfortunately, one winner هو اللي هيمثل مصر. The award for best company goes to CMP.
told you before, huh? This is what I told you before. We're the best.
We did it. Well, we've had in other years ambulances coming and picking up the students who are fainting because they didn't win, and they see it as this, I just didn't make it. But they did make it because now they know how to start entrepreneurial ventures, and these are the skills that will keep them going for life.
Despite the disappointment, Noor says she's already looking forward to competing next year.
احنا حتى امبارح لسه كنا في الكليه وقاعدين نتكلم اللي هو طب يا جماعه المجازين دي مثلا ما اتباعتش او كده، احنا هنعمل ايه؟ عايزين في الصيف مثلا في السمر نعمل مشروع لينا احنا برضو، نفتح ستور، نعمل اي حاجه نبيع فيه تي شيرتس، اي حاجه اللي هو عايزين في الصيف فعلا يبقى عندنا مشروع لينا، وهو ده اللي احنا شغالين فيه.
Even though the competition is over, Abdul Hamid just can't stop selling.
I'm buying some computer bags.
He says he's got even more startup ideas and a new attitude about work.
That looks like a bribe.
A job won't come to your home. It won't knock knock. Hello, good morning, I'm a job. This won't happen. Of course it won't happen. So you have to target, you have to be the job itself.
We need thousands of students to be doing this. So we just have to work harder, fundraise more, get more companies involved, inspire more business leaders.
Soraya says Injaz is looking to expand in Egypt and continue its push around the Middle East.
They know how to read and write, they should know how to start a company.
Ahmed's team won the award for Most Responsible Company. But in the end, he says he came away with a more important prize.
I was 100% surprised to see my dad walking in while I was presenting. I didn't expect that. And it was really happy.
Very, very nice. Very good. يا رحت اتبسطت جدا جدا وغيرت اتجاهي وتفكيري عن احمد خالص خالص. بقيت ومتضايق ان انا كنت بقص عليه دلوقتي بعد ما شفته كده وبيناقش قلت ده اجدع من الجامعه، احسن من الجامعه. دي جامعه، الخبره اللي هو واخدها دي انا ما خدتهاش في سنين.
Just to let him say that he thinks that we are the best team. والله ما
كاس ولا حاجه.
هو انت مش متوقع ان احنا ناخد اول يعني؟
ده متوقع هاخد لغايه دلوقتي.
ان شاء الله. That's enough for me, even if I didn't win today. That was really something. That means a lot.
And finally tonight, in Vietnam, on the move in the developing world.
Vietnam is a country in constant motion. Without a good set of wheels, it's easy to get left behind. That's especially true for Vietnamese wheelchair riders like Quan Dien. He lost his legs in the war with Cambodia in the early 1980s.
Cũng có té một lần. Tức là cái dốc nó có cái gờ nè. Đi nhanh quá đụng vô cái dội ra thì người mình nó theo quán tính nó bay ra trước.
Because the streets of his neighborhood aren't wheelchair friendly, Quan mostly stays home in a small apartment. To make ends meet, he rents his backroom workshop to another wheelchair rider, Ton Giang, who contracted polio as a child.
Việt Nam mình còn thiếu sót nhiều lắm. Họ chưa có tìm ra cái cách giải quyết để cho người khuyết tật. Họ phải làm sao? Nhưng mà họ thường là làm cái này theo cái kia nhưng mà họ không nghĩ để tiện lợi cho ai hết. Cho nên đến người khuyết tật nhiều cái cũng thiệt thòi.
But a world away, there's a new wheelchair, and it's making an impact.
Hit it hard and nothing happens.
Ralph Hotchkiss is an engineering professor at San Francisco State who's been thinking about wheelchair design for a long time.
Very strong. Can come down a high curb, hit hard. Nothing happens. Nothing fails. This wheel, there's no way I can break it.
Wow. After becoming paralyzed in a motorcycle accident 30 years ago, Ralph started out just trying to make a better wheelchair for his own use. But he ended up making a bigger breakthrough with something he calls the Rough Rider.
It was necessary to come up with a Rough Rider because there was no other wheelchair that worked well enough in all of the difficult situations in developing countries. Everything you do, you have to go long distances over rocky or sandy or muddy roads.
Ralph gathered design ideas from around the world. The front wheel comes from a shopping cart in Zimbabwe.
Very flexible, very light, made out of auto tire retread rubber.
Ralph and his associate, Mark Krizak, showed me the advantages of a Rough Rider over standard hospital chairs, which are much less stable.
Wow.
Its standard parts, like bicycle tires, make it less expensive to repair. After years of tinkering, Ralph decided the Rough Rider was ready for the rigors of the developing world.
Tôi thấy tôi gặp ông ấy là lần đầu tiên là tôi thấy như có một cái dòng điện mà nó bắt nhau ở trong cái cuộc đời này. Chúng tôi nhìn với nhau một cách thân ái vô cùng.
In 2006, Tuan Nguyen was approached by Ralph to produce the Rough Rider in Vietnam.
Tôi thấy là cái hai người của hai bờ đại dương gặp nhau để chúng ta làm cái xe lăn này.
Mr. Tuan makes the Rough Rider using locally available materials and inexpensive labor. It's Ralph's vision that the Rough Rider should be easy and cheap to make any place in the world. His associate, Mark Krizak, checks in with Mr. Tuan whenever he can.
It's been how long? 1 year since I was here.
He's brought the latest innovation from San Francisco with him.
And now all you have to do is copy this exactly as it is, and you'll have another size smaller.
As always, there's no charge for the design. Ralph's technologies are open source. And his Whirlwind Wheelchair Network also helps raise money from Western foundations to help pay the $175 cost of the chair.
Wheelchair users don't make the market. They can't afford to buy their own wheelchairs. So what Whirlwind does is not only just transfer the technology to factories like Kin Tong, but we also market the chairs. We've tried to raise the money so that they can actually sell the chairs.
With Whirlwind's help, Mr. Tuan regularly donates his Rough Riders to those most in need. While we were there, we found him at a disabled athletes tournament giving away chairs to the participants, including Ton Gyong, who we'd met earlier in Kwan's back room. After the game, Ton went for a ride through his neighborhood.
Cứng xe, bật ra sao mà nó có té không? Bật ra sao không sợ té, còn mấy xe kia bật cái nhõng ben lên rồi.
Đấy cái gì?
Thắng.
Đấy khi nào chạy nhanh là thắng.
Thắng lại mình gài cho đứng lại.
Ton may be sold, but his friend and landlord Kwan has his doubts.
Cái này đâu bằng đâu. Đi xe này thấy ngon không?
Ngon, đi ngoài đường đã lắm, đi nhẹ, đi ngoài đường nhẹ.
Lăn nhanh á.
Kwan says his old chair suits him better.
Bây giờ tôi lên cái xe này rất dễ.
Dạ.
Còn xe kia lên xuống không được.
À anh thử rồi thì anh không
thử
lên
rồi,
xuống được.
Xuống nó cái tay mình chống xuống dưới đất này thì lại mình nó không đủ lực.
Dạ.
The first rule of wheelchair provision is do no harm. You can give someone a wheelchair and it can be a very inappropriate wheelchair. It could be like, giving somebody a little sports car, even if it's the best Mercedes-Benz sports car in the world, and the person lives in Alaska in the wintertime, and they're never going to be able to use that.
Mark heard about Kwan's concerns, so he decided to pay him a visit and brought Mr. Tuan along as well. It turns out, Kwan got his first chair from Mr. Tuan more than 20 years ago. Kwan says the Rough Rider's footrests are of no use to him, but Mark explains that the chair is designed to be easily modified.
So go ahead and use your tools and fix it. Let's do it. Let's do it right now.
Within minutes, they've raised the footrest to create a step.
Yeah, easier, right? Much easier. Yeah. Much
And they see another benefit of the modification.
Okay. Ah, there you go. You can use the foot pedals to carry things even.
Vậy mà còn chắc ăn á chú, không có sợ bị ngã ngửa. Đè vậy chắc ăn.
Quan decides to keep the chair after all. For Ralph, it's been the same story all over the world. He's brought the Rough Rider to dozens of countries, including Mexico, Iraq, and South Africa, through partnerships with several factories abroad.
I would like to see Whirlwind wheelchair become unnecessary as soon as possible. I would like to help to develop a self-sustaining competitive industry of wheelchair building all over the world. Once the marketplace is populated, hopefully by then there will be so many people working on inventing wheelchairs, making wheelchairs better than ever, that maybe in 10, 20, 30 years we won't even recognize today's chairs. They'll be history.
On the final day of the ping pong tournament, Mr. Tuan helps present awards to the athletes, many of whom are now using his chairs. And afterwards, everyone gathers for a banquet. On this night, the Rough Rider seems to be the star of the show.
There's more of the world to explore on our website.
You can imagine the health implications of having to work here for these children.
Follow the trail of e-waste around the globe.
Behind these chimneys are the burn stations. I smell the solder here. Let's get out.
Meet some other heroes from a small planet in our coverage of social entrepreneurs.
He's not your typical rock star. He uses his music to teach villagers about good hygiene.
And watch the latest in our web-exclusive series, Rough Cut.
Scientists have turned their attention to human embryonic stem cells.
Discuss the world and tell us what you think at pbs.org. Frontline World's Digital Dumping Ground is available on DVD. To order online, visit shoppbs.org or call 1-800-PLAY-PBS. Frontline World is made possible by Shell, supporting freedom of the press.
As you can see, people are gathering around.
And the independent journalists.
How do you respond to these charges?
Who tell the stories of our times. And by the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, committed to building a more just, verdant, and peaceful world. The William and Flora Hewlett Foundation, and the Skoll Foundation.